It's probably the easiest thing to do. So hello, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. So what I'm going to be working on today, hopefully, if we can get the stream working this time, we've had a few technical issues, is the relational side of the game. So I've shown you the stuff that I've been working on recently, but I'll just show it again. So since the beginning, well, it's probably the middle of the Kickstarter, I've been working on some new stuff, which I'd love to show you. So if I just quickly start in space and start shooting at a bunch of things, you'll see that I've got combat in the game now. So we've got some basic guns, we've got some missiles, which is kind of fun. Another missile there, and you can see that heat seeking. I just blew it up. But if I just blow this thing up, and then you can see that there's debris that kind of flies off, which is quite cool. So there's a whole bunch of cool stuff going on with the combat, which I really have enjoyed working on. That's been really cool. But now it's time to focus more on the core gameplay again. So the core gameplay of this game is all around people and relationships, and it's been a little while since I worked on that side of things, and I'm looking forward to get back into it. So if I just go back to our development board, you can see what I've got in my backlog. So I've got an icebox here of stuff. I've got the high level stuff that I need to get through before April. So that's basically the entire rest of the game that needs to be done. So I've got my launch deadline there, as you can see. This is a public board. You can actually go to it and look at it yourself. You can even comment and vote should you wish to. I'm totally fine with that. So that's the address of the board there on the chat. And if you have a look through, you can see all the different things and where I'm kind of going with the game and what I expect to be doing next. I'm trying to keep the game development as open as possible to allow me to communicate with people as best as possible about how the game is coming along, so that people have a sense of where we're at and where it's going to be. So I've just finished a whole bunch of stuff to do with combat. What I'm doing now is I'm not going to work through these things. A lot of these things are small things that I just need to remember to do. But what I'm going to look at first is this card, the events shaping opinions of characters. And this is quite important. So what I want to do, just to explain it, is I want to replace our existing notion of enemies with opinions of characters. So what I mean by that is that based on the things that a character knows about another character, all the characters in the game keep a list of the events or the things that happen that the other character knows happens to the other character. So say you've got a character, Joe, and he's got, say, 20 things that have happened to him in his life, or 20 things that he's done. Now you might have a character, Bob, who may know about 5 of those things. Depending on which things that character knows about, Bob knows about Joe, that will help Bob to form an opinion about Joe. So it's possible that Bob may form an incorrect or a misinformed opinion of Joe depending on what he thinks he knows about him. So the classic thing is that partial information leads to misleading assumptions. So the idea is that Joe may think that a character isn't trustworthy just because they see that the guy happened to have his ship blown up, even though that's a bit unfair because there were extenuating circumstances. But if Bob doesn't know about those extenuating circumstances, then that means that he's going to form an incorrect opinion. So this kind of misinformation and rumour that will spread through the game via gossip is kind of what I'm going for. But in order to model that correctly, what I need to do first is work on getting the opinions correct, so that we can figure out exactly how characters can form opinions about each other. Now we do have this idea of an enemy in the system at the moment. A character can be an enemy, but that's just like a random thing. So at the moment in the history gen, if you fall out with a character in some way, then you become an enemy of that other character, and that's just a bit random. What I want to happen is for them to form opinions rather than actually make enemies as such. So an enemy is just an entrenched, someone with an entrenched opinion of another character. That's the kind of idea that I want to get to. So it gives me more flexibility around how characters feel about each other, which is really important when you're writing a game that is all about those character interactions. So that's what I'm going for. What I want to do first, I'm going to make a checklist on this card. All of my development is completely open and it's on this card, so you can see exactly where I got to. If you're interested, you can subscribe to this Trello board. The address is on the chat, and you are able to follow along exactly what I do. If you're really keen on following everything, then you can definitely do that. Okay, so the first thing to do is remove current concept of enemy from the game. So I'm going to completely remove that first. Once I've done that, I want to have some way of collecting model the collection of opinions one character has about another. So what I want to do is I don't want to track that particularly in state, an extra state. I just want to generate that each time I need it from the events. And so I might just need to write that down actually. Events. It's not just events, it's also down to and closeness. So every character has a kind of a closeness rating with another character. It's basically how high up on their list of characters they like this person is, basically. And that will also generate opinions too. And also the opinions will affect, when we go through and review those relationships, it will affect how that character moves up and down those closeness. So it's kind of self-reinforcing. So we'll see how that goes. So that is probably fine. So I could model it initially and I could kind of guess what I want, but the best thing to do is to have some kind of behavior that's triggering this. So I need to work towards, my aim for this week is to work towards modeling this, but I need to have something that it's used for in order to have an example of its use so that I can kind of work backwards from the example down to the actual code. So that's called outside in development. It's definitely a best way of working. Write the usage code first, write the use case first, and then we can figure out what we actually need as opposed to writing some stuff that we don't. So what I want to do is think about how an opinion might affect somebody else. And the first thing that jumps into my head is borrowing ships. At the moment, when you borrow a ship from a character, the issue that can be that someone thinks, you can't really handle that ship or not. So what I could do is model some kind of reliability. There's a couple of opinions that a character could have which might affect whether or not they'll lend them a ship. One is whether they trust them enough. So there's a kind of a trustworthiness about how much we think they might bring it back. The other thing is, can they actually handle a ship? You wouldn't lend a child a ship because you don't think that they can actually handle a ship yet. So that would be something that you would want to check against. The other thing would be something to do with how likely they are to break it. So you might trust them that they're going to bring it back, but they may not be able to bring it back in one piece. So how do we model all of that? There's quite a lot of different reasons that you may or may not lend somebody a ship. And those are different depending on whether you would hire a ship to them or whether you would lend it to them. So you'd lend it to them if you like them. So I'm going to write some of this stuff down. Borrowing ships. You've got the like opinion. You've got the reliable opinion. And the handler one, whether you could handle it. Yeah, I can probably put that one in there. Skilled pilot opinion, and you've also got the unskilled bad pilot opinion. I'm not sure I'm going to put that one in, we'll see. Hiring ships is kind of similar. It doesn't matter whether you like them or not, but you have certainly got a reliable opinion. You won't lend something to someone that you don't think you'll get it back from necessarily. It depends on who you are, actually. The skilled pilot, I think it's probably only bad pilots that you worry about. Opinion. Okay, so that's possibly all I care about right now. Need to think about whether or not there's anything else. So if they've got a reputation as a bad pilot, then you want to. That's important. So we have to try and figure out where that comes from. So opinions can come from a few places. So they may come from events the character knows about, or known events. They come from traits, attributes, traits, like age. So again, you won't, it's really a competent incompetent pilot. Now, there's a difference between someone who can't fly a ship and someone who isn't old enough to be able to fly a ship yet. So that's a tricky one. I'm not quite sure where that fits in at this point. It doesn't really matter at this point. I think it's just if you've had the ship blown up. That comes down to, well, is that reliable? Yeah, I'm not sure whether we're going to model this. I think there'll be enough initially without modeling that at the moment. Yeah, that kind of works, doesn't it? So opinions will come from known events and also closeness at the moment. So let's go for that to start with. I want to keep this really simple. I'm looking for a simple option that allows me to just kind of do the real basic thing. So instead of now checking a dexterity, at the moment we're checking dexterity attribute. I don't really like that because it's fixed, the character can't influence it. It's just a random check. It's not that interesting. When someone tries to borrow a ship, they just do a dexterity check and say, you can't handle it. That's no good. So we're now going to have more, are they a reliable person, and do we like them in the case of borrowing a ship? And I think that's probably all we need at the moment. That'll certainly get us to hiring, borrowing ships and getting enough of a kind of skeleton for opinions in. And if I'm able to get to that by the end of the week or so, that's actually pretty good going. You know, I'd like to get there quicker, but that will be a starting point. From there, we can think about another example. So the first example is the first two examples are borrowing and hiring. So let's just make that clear. So I'm going to go with example mapping. If you're interested, have a look at example mapping. It's quite an interesting thing to check out. I'm going to go for examples. Matt Wynn's written a whole bunch of stuff on it. It's really interesting. But behavior-driven development is the general, the name of some of these techniques that are collected together. That's something that I train in, and it's really useful. So this is actually more to do with rules. So we've got, and this is to-dos. So I don't normally do this for a full set of things that I need to do, but it's quite useful to do when you're thinking through something. Okay, not worrying about opinions like incompetent pilot for now. Not worrying about age for hiring, borrowing, track separately. I think we do that anyway. If needed. Okay, we're doing pretty well. So what other things might affect whether someone does something well? They might attack someone they hate. AI attacks someone they are angry with. I'm not sure we're doing that yet, but basically that means that they could easily depending on wisdom. So if they've got a low wisdom, then they could well attack someone. They're reckless. What else could happen? Oh, the conversation stuff. So player talks to AI who is when AI is angry. So let's make that really concrete. So player talks to AI when AI is angry with them. What happens here? Well, it's going to be frosty responses rather than friendly ones. So that means we need to move the conversation choice stuff, influence conversation statement choices by opinion, not just closeness. So at the moment we're using closeness for that, so you can either be like polite and friendly or really friendly, and now we're going to use opinion, so you can be angry, you can be cross, or whatever. So that comes down to what causes bad opinions. So AI or player shoots down ship and causes bad opinion. So that's one thing. I'm not sure I'm going to do that one just yet. We can start with delete. No, I don't want to do that. Can I move that to a different card? I don't think I can. Nice if I could. Right, so players shooting down ships and causing bad opinions. That's certainly something that I can think about doing. Yeah, but the bad event stuff is done. It's more when we know about an event, it gives a bad opinion of them. We really need to be thinking about the generation stuff. So so there's a few things here. So the history gen should think about breaking down the bad events. Now I've got this here. I've got combat bad events. We already have this in actually. This is done. The only thing that we don't have here is the transferal of events through gossip, which is here. So that's important to this level, to this thing here. This is actually done. So I'm going to pop that in there. The interesting thing that I need to do next, though, is bad events are generated in combat, but bad events need to be generated in history generation too. So there's a whole bunch of history generation stuff whereby we generate bad events, but they're kind of random and they're not attached to particular characters. So bad events in history generation. I want more detail. So we want to get to the point where opinions formed about characters in history generation. This is very useful. So for example, if one character has an affair with another character, that has to have an effect. So let's start adding this in. Let's make it simple. Joe has affair married to, let's say Harry, married to Wilma. Can't spell. Why is my T key not working? That's weird. Married to Wilma, has affair with Andy. No, well, it doesn't really matter. Has affair with. Let's keep it simple for now because I haven't got. There's a whole thing about homosexuality and those kind of affairs too, which we haven't put in yet, or basically kind of more and expanded options in terms of both gender and also to do with other kind of family types, which I haven't put in yet. I've kept it simple and fairly nuclear, which I fully admit is unrealistic. So we need to expand it out. So I need to do something to do with that anyway. So I want to put in some kind of expansion. It's not in here though. Expansion of family. Oops. Why is my T key? That's really weird. The key is now. Oh, it's got stuck for some reason. There's probably coffee in it or something. Relationship. That's my keyboard going, isn't it? That's a bit frustrating. Okay, so I'm going to figure out that another time. So what I'm doing, this is a process called example mapping. I'm bouncing between different stories, different cards, different examples, different rules for the things I'm doing. I'm just trying to think of different types of things I want to build. What I do is I go through, kind of ideate, think about all these different things, and then I'll order them and then get some stuff done. So we'll get some to coding in just a second. Okay, so we've got Harry married to Wilma and has an affair with Andrea. So what happens in that case? Well, Harry will have, Wilma will have, assuming Wilma finds out, she will have a really bad opinion of Harry. Wilma, right, on affair, a wife will have, say, I'm going to call them cuckold, will have a bad opinion of the adulterer and very bad opinion, I'm going to just use, of Andrea. Not bad opinion is bad, be angry with, let's be specific, with Harry and very angry with Andrea. Right, on who else? Harry will feel Harry might feel guilty about Wilma. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure how you don't have a guilty opinion of someone. The opinion is that you have wronged them in some way. I'm not quite sure what that's called. It's a thing, isn't it? But it might affect your behaviour towards them, so we might need to put that in. I'm not sure. Let's have that as a separate rule because I think that's different. That's one example where we could have an opinions. What else could happen? There's loads of different life stage events. Let's have a look through a few of them. So we've got something that's bad. Addling your mind. That's when you are a hippie. Some kind of scandal might be quite good. There's a few options here. I don't know. There's a lot we could go with this. I'm just trying to think about how far to take this. In some ways, I'm not sure how that's going to pan out yet. There's a lot of different things, like if you're a hippie, the commune could get raided. Your overdose, you could. There's a whole bunch of different things that could happen here. You could go to prison if you're a prisoner. If someone finds out that they've been to prison, they're going to form a low opinion of them potentially, depending on them. It's just something I need to think quite carefully through. I'm not sure I've got enough information to be able to make those decisions yet. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with what I've got, and I'm going to start actually writing some code. So the first thing, I think that's probably first, we've got gossiping, we've got bad events, and we've got events shaping opinions of characters. We definitely want to replace the concept of enemies. Well, let's do that first. Let's just take out enemies before we get any further. So I'm going to start working on that, and I'm going to remove all of the enemy stuff. So I've got a little check here where I'm going to look for everything that mentions enemies, and we're just going to take them out. Simple as that. So we'll just take out all of the kind of different things here. I'm not sure I'm going to take out the graphics yet. Do we need the enemy graphics? Potentially we may change the way that the graphics work. I'll have to see how that goes. Okay, so now we have, this is where we actually remove them and add them to the enemy list. I'm not sure we need enemies as a list anymore. That's really not how we're going to track this. So this is going to be down to this is whether or not they become an enemy, whether they just fall out. I don't really want people to fall out for no reason. That's not fun. it's not clear as to why they fall out, then they shouldn't fall out. It's more interesting to the game if they fall out for particular reasons. That's why I want to go with that. So let's see, shall we? So I'm going to take out all of this enemy code. I'm just removing it. Seriously, it's all going. And is there any side effects to that at all? No, it literally just removes it. So this whole thing here has gone. Do we need new closeness? We don't. So actually this enemy stuff I'd already if-defed out, but it's gone now. That's all gone. I think this is all the same code. Yep, it's fine. So do we degrade the enemy relationships? No, we don't. Right, this is where we go through the enemies. This is down to whether or not someone died. So do we remove the info list? We just remove all of the information about enemies. We don't have any enemies anymore. That's not how it works. So now we have no enemy counts. And we have that can go completely. Yeah. So now relationships just track friends and relationships. Friends and relations, I should say. We don't need that anymore. And we can drop that one down to 10. This case can go. Family status, that can go. Result. We're looking to see whether they've got a relationship with this person. We don't need to check the enemies at all, so that can go. I didn't really like tracking friends and enemies separately anyway. That will make that a lot quicker, which is nice. That's all gone. Oh, we need this. Right. We're checking to see whether or not they have an enemy. Yeah, so that's just not going to do anything at that point. So we can just do that. That's all gone, and that's it. So hopefully that'll compile. Yes, I do. Cool, that compiled fine. Just a slightly weird thing with that relational stuff. Make sure I haven't removed anything I didn't want to. I think it was just an old backup file. Yeah, no, that looks fine to me. Okay, so now we've removed enemies. We should be able to just run the game, generate the history, and make sure that it's all still working. So let's just do that quickly. Okay, generate new history. Generate. Now there won't be any enemy generation or creation at this point, which is fine. I'm not really liking the way that that was tracking a list anyway. That just didn't seem to be the right way to do it. Okay. I'll just create a little bit more light in here. There we go. That's a bit better. Okay, so it looks like that's all worked fine. So let's just have a look at our mother, who's imprisoned, funny enough. Look at that. Toshiko Hoffman. That's hilarious. Married to Jamie Hoffman. And it looks like she's managed to get herself put away. So this is the sort of thing. She's been in prison for how long? Oh, crikey. Uh, 2286 she went to prison. Oh, goodness. She went to prison in 2274 and also in 2287, 2286. That's pretty rubbish. Goodness. Not very clever. She's like Han Solo, but just massively less successful. Oh crikey, she's had a big fall because she enlisted with Starfleet too, just at the end of the 50s. She was, when was she born? 40, enlisted with Starfleet at 19. This is why I love this game. So cool to kind of look through and see all the stuff that they did. Met a whole bunch of people, then took an apprenticeship as a mechanic, moved to Tokyo, then became a freelance trader, but then started smuggling. You know, you need to do that. Wasn't very smart. Not clever. What can I say? Low wisdom, very reckless. Anyway, not that I'm judging. Looks like our father stuck by her all that time there. He's not that keen on her anymore. She likes him. He's like, don't see her very often, which isn't surprising. What's happened to him? He's just a manager. Interesting. Anyway, so that looked like it worked. So we've now managed to remove the enemies. So now, Let's just check all of that code in. So we removed enemy from the display order. Now, do we need the enemy graphics? Probably what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take that out. Yep, so if I, yeah, I'm happy with that one. I'm just going to take those out for now, actually. Don't think we need them. Remove, 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 remove. Yeah, that's all fine. Cool, so I managed to remove 71 lines of code. That's always nice. Right, well, what's next? So, done that. So now we need to think about what we're actually going to build. So we need to look at the hiring ship code. Let's go for this one first. Hiring ships. So when we hire ships, how do we decide whether or not a ship is available or not? I think there's no checking at the moment at all with hiring ships. Let's just have a look. Hire. Success, ship hire failure. It is possible to fail on hiring ships, so let's have a look at that. Select player, hire, ask for ship hire. Interesting. You can fail, well, you can't fail anymore. Right, so it's not possible to fail currently because there's no test here. At the moment we have this kind of attribute chest, which isn't great. And we need to have some other way of saying we want to fail a test. It needs to be thought about. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work yet. I'd quite like to remove all of the attributes from this conversation list. This is all of the conversation options that are available to the player and whether or not they succeed or not. If we leave them in, that can be a bit crap because it's just down to the charm that you happen to have when you started your character. I'm not convinced that that's actually very good. I prefer to go for something that you can actually control as opposed to something you can't. Just feels like it'd be more fun. So having the ability to control people's opinions of you makes more sense. Let's have another look at our example. So we've got, let's go for borrowing ships, because it is possible to fail with a borrow. There we go. So if you fail an easy reflexes test, and they won't lend it to you. I don't really like doing that at all. I prefer to fail some kind of opinion test. That would be kind of more interesting. So how's that going to look? So instead of having a test and a difficulty, we actually want that to have, think. It kind of wants to be an opinion test. So if they have a particular opinion of you. Oh, no, this is interesting. We could have opinions that are formed of combinations of other opinions. Ooh, that's interesting. Don't want to make it too complicated, but that is quite interesting. So whether or not someone is someone that you want to hire, lend a ship to, is down to whether or not you like them. It's down to whether or not, do we want to have two tests here? Well, okay. We definitely know we need to change a few of these things. So I'm going to remove, yeah. I'm going to remove the test stuff completely for now. And then I'm going to add opinions checks. Now this one, or in the AI response stuff, we've already got tags which are separated by colons, so that's easy enough to do. So we could say something like ask for ship, borrow. Ask to borrow ship here. We could have something like do we want to remove opinions at this point? The problem with removing all of this stuff is there's a whole bunch of behavior in here, like small talk, charm, hard. I quite like these small talk checks, but again, I don't like them. We need to put something in their place, really. Now, people can't form opinions about characters until they've had a chance to get to know them. So maybe an attribute chest is useful in certain cases. I'm just not sure about that. Yeah, because if a player is known by reputation, you don't want it to be in the attribute, you want it to be on the nice to talk to. But it depends on the person. It depends on what they're doing. It depends on what they're doing right now. So at the moment, the way that this works is if they are at their desk, they won't talk to you unless you are good at charm. You have to be very charming. That's not accurate. It's more about whether they like you, which is different to whether or not you might be interesting to chat to. So whether they think you're friendly, which is different. Interesting. Interesting, interesting, interesting. So I am going to remove all of these. And I'm going to add a few opinions in here. A bar. They'll always serve you. I could have brawler or something like that, but or illegal, but it depends on the type of bar. So I'm not going to do that at this point. Okay, desk. They don't want to talk to you unless you are. I'm just going to say like for now. But they like you. Inquiries. And that's slightly different. They will talk to you if you are friendly. Now this is interesting. If you have a min closeness, this is where this is going to change. This is now going to be reliable and own. I'm just going to go for reliable for now. And this one is also going to be reliable. We don't care about the min closeness anymore. In fact, this also needs to vanish. Yeah, that's good. So that makes a difference down here, but not anywhere else. Right. Like we want to really name this something like X thinks Y is yeah, that's good. That one doesn't matter about their opinion of them. Trading possible. Doesn't make any difference. Imprisoned. That comes down to whether or not they want to chat. Doesn't make any difference in imprisoned. I'll talk to anyone. Socializing, that's interesting. You need to be friendly. Friendly or like will be fine. When you're home, you need to be someone they like. They won't just chat to you if you're friendly. But they might do if you pay more patience. 2 patience for that one. Okay, this one is just anywhere else that they might want to be friendly, make small talk to. It's probably okay, we'll just leave that one blank. Inquirers asking for ships, here we go. So we want them to be reliable, or at least not unreliable, which is interesting. So this one will be, do you need to have a good reputation to hire a ship at all? No, but you need to not be unreliable. So really I need to say, this is actually a new unless opinion. We need to have a new column here. So this is required opinion, and this is unless opinion. And obviously we need to add that everywhere. Oops. Vim is failing me. Okay. So, okay, come on. Right, so we need to go here. I'm going to say there we go. Cool. Right. So this one won't hire if you're unreliable. Nor will this one. Will they hire if unreliable? They might, but that's something else for later. So this is the pirates who are loiterers. Dehiring is fine. Asking to borrow a ship. This one needs you to be like, and also you need to be not unreliable. What about borrowing money? Again, you need to be borrowing money from a friend. You need to be like and not unreliable. And then if you want to be regular, you just need to be not unreliable. There's a whole money borrowing thing as well. That's all fine. That's down to whether or not you can accept. And hiring a room, that probably will allow anyone to stay in a hotel. But there may be kind of a, you can't stay here because you're somewhere or other. I don't know. Okay, so that's good. So now we've changed the CSV file here. We need to actually change the code behind it, which is reasonably easy to do. All we did was to replace 2 columns. So still got 12 fields, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, we don't. I've removed 1 or 2. Let's see, what have I done? I've removed min closeness. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so I've got 11. So this is my low code that backs this CSV file. So that now needs to be 11. Minimum closeness doesn't exist anymore. And then we have got, let's go back to that file actually, because I can't see what it's all about. So we've got required tags, and we've also got player response. There we go, player. Okay, so that's 11, 10, 9, 8. So this is down to this is actually a CSV tag list. So the attribute to test and difficulty no longer need to exist. In fact, do I actually use those in AI response? I don't think that I do. No, I don't. Which means that actually, if I go to conversation statements, we now no longer use attribute test and difficulty, which means that we need a CSV tag list of fields 7 and 8. Okay. And we also need fields tag 8, which will be unless opinions. There we go. Cool. Now that should compile. No? Ah, yes. So we need now to say something like required opinions unless opinions. Cool. Right, remember name difficulty. Really? Oh yes, I removed it. Right, so this is the code that checks the attributes. So we don't actually care about difficulty anymore. And this is down to the tone, because the tone affects the opinion. The conversation tone affects the attribute test. So actually that means that tones are now useless. So we need to rehook up tones. I think. Let's think about what tones will be in the future. That was not what I wanted to load. Tones, CSV, tone even. Right, so we got a whole bunch of gendery type stuff. Okay, obviously I need to expand this for homosexual relationships, which I haven't done yet. That's whether or not it affects it or not, and whether it works, and it affects the status, but the tones will work because they will affect whether or not you're able to persuade someone to ignore their opinion, I guess. So it's more it's more down to whether we're going to ignore opinion. This is how we're going to do it. It's whether we're going to come down to, are we going to ignore the unless opinion, and that's the answer is false, or are we going to ignore the required opinion? So this is quite interesting. So that means that if we manage to pass the tone test, we will we'll ignore the unless opinion, which means that we don't care. Let's see, back to the player. It's whether or not we don't care that they're unreliable, we don't care if they're friendly. If we pass the tone test, we don't care if they're friendly. If we fail the tone test, it doesn't make any difference. It's either one or the two. If we screw up, this is interesting, if we screw up the tone test, what happens? We want it to basically reverse anyway. We want it to say, well, we don't care if you're required or unless. So we basically want to say something like, it's going to fail anyway. So we can just say passed equals false. Okay, so basically we'll just say you fail. There we go. Right, so if you get the tone of conversation right, your opinions goes up. Your opinions don't matter. Opinions that the person doesn't matter, they'll just get it anyway. Whereas if you fail it, then you just automatically fail, which is probably simpler. Okay, so that's good. And then we just check to see whether or not the thing is working. That's fine. Cool. So difficulty should now be gone. The attribute test isn't going to happen. So now it's down to if passed, we need to decide past is based on opinion. Which means that, is it down to the speaker? Oops. Right, so it's down to the speaker and the target. So the speaker is the one who's attempting the test, which means it's down to the target knowing stuff about the speaker. Something like this. And it's going to have to be down to their entity IDs, I think. Okay, so we want to collect opinions of. Collect opinions, that's probably need to. And what's that going to return? Well, ideally, we want it to return a list of things that they think. And then just check to see whether or not it's in there or not. Something like that. So we need to basically pass in a list of opinions. Array count opinions, and then we'll get back a simple list of opinions. So this will be UN32 opinions, say 4 or I don't know 16. So in case they have 16 opinions, it's very unlikely 8. And then we could say something like, if we need to find, if we need to just do an overlap. Tag in set. We could just have a generic overlaps thing here, which is going to be the opinions, array count opinions, and also we could say something like, if this is the conversation, required opinions, I need to think about this. So there's a few cases that could be the case here. We've got a whole bunch of, basically a whole bunch of numbers. That's what it's going to come down to. We're going to have a list of the required opinions that the character needs to have. This is probably there. We've probably already done this in match statement. Yeah, something similar to this. Let's not worry about overlaps yet. We can always refactor that. So we're basically going to go for required opinions, and then we basically say if there's no tag, then just break. We call it an opinion. So if we just need to zoom through the for O index statement, and this is just down to opinions. Actually, this is just going to be opinion count. Opinion count. So we're going to return that from here, and then basically say something like if opinion O index is equal to, this is a slightly trickier thing to get right here. statement, the opinion, then we can say something like, that's fine, equals true. Just break out of that. If the opinion is not found, then pass is false. That's nasty. But it does work. It will actually work, which is quite nice. But ideally, we want to build that into a generic overlaps function with some tests. I don't really like that as it is. So I'm going to write that. So that's what we need anyway. We need the overlaps. So let's have some code here which says something like past equals tag found it's down to whether or not interesting. It's a set theory, isn't it? You've got a set which is basically the opinion list or the required opinions. Let's have some set operations because we need some anyway. And then we can do so it's whether opinions contains the required opinions. Perfect. So it has to contain the required opinions, and also if there's any intersection between the opinions that the character holds and the unless opinions, then we want to fail. So we cannot intersect with the unless opinions, and we have to fully contain all the required opinions. I think that'll do it. And in fact, I think I might just break this down. Has all required opinions. Has no unless opinions. Right, and then pass is basically down to has all the required opinions and has no unless opinions. Cool. So that will actually work. But it won't work at all because we haven't done any of this code. We haven't written that, we haven't written either of those things. So I'm basically going to just set that to do a to-do. Now we've got a few other things here. So this is down to asking the subject location. Ah yes, so we do an opinion check here, don't we? Because we create a conversation statement on the fly to see whether or not we want to actually do the thing. So we either basically say where they're coming from, or we give them the home city. It depends on where we know where they are. This is slightly trickier. We want this to be based on their opinion of them. Thinking. this is when they ask about the particular where they live. You know, one of those pressing for more information about where they are. And that will come down to your opinion of them. So at the moment, I'm going to just to do this. Yeah, whether they're trustworthy, whether they're up to no good, whether they know that they like that person. There's a few other things I want to do there, and I actually don't want to get to that yet. What I'd like to do is think about putting that in when we expand the complex missions. Yeah, I'm going to actually break this out a little bit and just talk about expand conversation options around so this is probably a new story here, and one of the things I want to add to that is use the opinion of the character in deciding whether to tell them about where they live. Are they up to no good, for example? Right. Oh, thanks, Ibero. So yeah, thanks for the vote of confidence on that, on the Kickstarter funding. Appreciate it. Okay. So I've removed that. Is there another one of those? Yes, there is. So this is down to whether we talk about it. So it's exactly the same issue. So I want to actually copy that same. This is down to the press for more information. Okay, not checking random events, that's really bad writing. When pressing about a character's info, we don't just want to base it on charm. That makes charm too powerful an attribute. It's got to come down to whether we think that they're friendly and generally trustworthy, or something like that. Okay, is that going to compile? It does, which means that now we've removed all of that attribute stuff. Let's just make sure it runs. We're in a good place to start thinking about putting those things in. Unfortunately, we've had a crash down to the tag list, and that's because we were trying to grab nothing from a field yet. So we can't, we can't do what I've just asked it to do. We need to make sure that the thing actually exists first, otherwise there's no point doing it. There we go. I've missed something obvious. There we go. Try again. Cool. Let's quickly generate that, make sure it works. Okay, so now when we're talking to anyone in the game, that will affect the way that the characters react. They won't use their attributes anymore. They won't do anything. Because at the moment we've actually just turned off the conversation stuff that we just had open. So we've just turned off all of the opinion stuff. So now we're in a position to be able to collect those, depending on getting that sorted. Now, I'm not sure that I'm going to go any further than that today. That's about an hour's worth of work, but it's a good start. We've done pretty well today. what we've done is we've managed to plan a whole bunch of stuff. Let's see if I can find someone. Let's chat to somebody here. Ah, we had a crash. It's worth probably checking that out. Find out what's happened here. So we're trying to display a conversation statement that was chosen. It could be that no conversation statement was chosen. That's the statement string. Yeah, that's weird. What was wrong with that? Pass in a hash. Right, so we've got a statement with a hash that doesn't work, or that isn't there. Hash, and that doesn't look very valid. Yeah, that looks a bit small to me. Just not convinced. It's possible, but it's unlikely to have had 3 zeros at the beginning. Right, so he's trying to say hello. Well, he's already said hello. Yeah, this is a tricky one. Let's have a look at that statement. There isn't an opinioner attached to it, so maybe it should never have worked. Not quite sure why that's failed. It only failed because we couldn't find a string for it. We don't unfortunately know what the string was. It could just be that I've just broken the CSV. Let's just have a look. Yeah, it's quite possible that I just broke the string for that. Let's have a look. When we load these things in, fields 7 and 8, yeah, there we go, that's the reason. Because I took out field 4, yeah, no, I just totally broke it. Yeah, look, field 4 is completely missing now, so I need to actually refer to field 5. This is going to be field 6, this is field 7, this is field 8, this is field 9, this is field 10. That must be 8. That's more like it. I think that'll work now. Okay, sorry, just a quick delay to the finish. So yeah, I'm going to finish there. Thanks very much for watching today. I stream every week or 2 or 3 or so on Twitch around about this time in the day. It'd be great to have you join us again if you'd like to. Just follow me on Twitch. You can see that if you're watching the YouTube, you can see the little clicking down the bottom. Or you can basically interact with me in lots of different ways. You can check out the Sole Trader dev board. There's lots of things you can do. So yeah, do please connect with me and we can go from there, and it'd be great to chat a bit more about the game, and very happy to answer questions, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm here every couple of weeks or so on Twitch, so do follow along, and there'll be lots more news and updates very, very soon. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.